Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, to today's show where I have a very special guest by the name of Mr. Michael Sartain from Men of Action or MOA mentoring.com. Mike, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Good.
It's a pleasure having you on here. So I haven't spoken with you before. We figured we'd forego the pre-show and then just dive right into it. So I was looking at your channel the other day and saw that you came across a topic that I get asked about a lot on my channel or my podcast, and that's the whole passport bros concept. So let's start off by defining. I know you had some very interesting takes on this. When I posted the pre-show type announcements on Instagram, I had guys reaching out. Well, I thought Mike didn't like passport bros, or I thought he was against it. So we can get into all that good stuff. But first, let's just start with a simple definition. What is a passport bro in your eyes?
So there's kind of two definitions I've seen. For me, the definition is you are going to a place where there is little middle class, maybe like poverty. So you have a high level of poverty and a disproportionately high level of attractive women. So the three main places I would think about this is Colombia, probably Ukraine in that area. So like maybe Romania, that area, parts of Poland, and then Southeast Asia. So maybe like Singapore or places like that. Singapore's not poor, but like certain poorer places like Vietnam would be an example.
Yeah.
So basically places where you will also see sex tourism. So where you see sex tourism, you're also going to see passport bros. A guy who's like, for instance, Hispanic going to Australia, and then all the Australian girls like, ooh, you look different than our guys, and they want to have sex with them. That's not a passport bro to me. Just going like a guy who goes to a first world country, like for instance, you grab your passport and you go to Sweden because you want a blonde haired, blue eyed woman that you want to date. Those people have a middle class. And so those women are not going to just up and leave for a green card like they might do in Medellin or they might do in Ho Chi Minh City or whatever. Like it's very different environment. So to me, my definition for passport bro is you're going to a place with almost no middle class, where women have very little upward financial mobility and a disproportionately high level of attractive women.
That's a fantastic definition, because every now and then I get accused of being a passport bro. And I know we haven't spoken too much prior to just getting on here, but I lived in Mexico years ago, almost 20 years ago. I studied abroad down here, studied at a very good university, didn't realize it at the time. Did my corporate career thing in California, got locked down in the pandemic, and then decided, you know what, I'll just come back to Mexico because I'm already pretty well established here. I have a good network of people, and it's never really felt foreign to me. But the passport bro thing didn't exist 20 years ago when I first came down. So now I'll run into other gringos or other expats, and they'll say, oh, you're one of those passport bro guys. I'm like, dude, I've been doing Mexico since before Google existed. I don't know what you're talking about. So I love that idea of that it has the very small middle class and then that income disparity. I think that's a key factor. And then even where I'm at in Mexico City, I'm in a pretty nice neighborhood. You don't really see sex tourism. Most of the girls I date are usually, actually, to be honest, higher class than I am. A lot of times as a gringo, you come down thinking, oh, I'm gonna have the ladies swooning over me, and then you get going out with them. You're like, no, they come from better families than I do even. So
Yeah.
What would the difference be in your eyes between, for example, a passport bro, an expat, and a digital nomad?
So yeah, digital nomad who goes to Tulum. Tulum's more fucking expensive than the United States. That's definitely not a passport bro. And most of the girls you'd be hooking up with there are either American or fucking European that are visiting Tulum. So that's when I see digital nomads, the number one spot for me I see is Tulum, like Mexico City. I'll see them sometimes in Medellin or like maybe Dubai or places like that. You'll see it maybe Sweden, sometimes Puerto Rico because of the 4% federal tax rate. You'll see places like that. That is just a function where you just want to travel and you can live anywhere you want. So you choose to do that. To me, by the way, any digital nomad who doesn't live in Vegas, I just don't understand why. It's better here than any of those places I just mentioned. So that's the first thing. The expat is, again, it's for financial gain. So for instance, the Emiratis, the royal family in the Emirates, their family members actually fly the fighter jets that the the UAE, United Arab Emirates royal family owns. So they actually have an air force in UAE. The guys who maintain those jets are usually former U.S. Air Force Air Force maintainers, and those guys get paid $400,000 a year to go work on jets and maintain them in another country. A lot of people have these cool jobs where they work on oil rigs, or they might work as, they just have like maybe even an English teacher. There's a bunch of different cool jobs that you can get in other countries where you're an expat, or you may just like live in like Koh Samui, Thailand, where it's super, super inexpensive to live. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you have like a couple $100,000 saved up and you realize you can just live there for the rest of your life because there's an arbitrage in wealth. That's what an expat would do. A passport bro is different. A passport bro is a situation where it's like, your initial reasoning for leaving is because the women in this country are not facilitating what you want. And that could be like, again, it's realistic. Are women getting bad advice from Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion to be a bad bitch and be like extremely difficult to deal with? Yes, that's true for sure. Are modern Western women very, difficult to lock down and have a long-term relationship with? Yes, the science, the data would show that is correct. And then from that, your personal anecdotal experience shows you, okay, well, I'm not having a ton of a success with dating. So let me go to this other place. And then you say, well, these people have more traditional values. But the problem is you can go to places with more traditional values, but those women still aren't going to fuck you. But in Colombia, they will. You know what I'm saying? And in places like that, they will. And so that's the issue. It's like there needs to be this added incentive. And I think we kind of ignore this. There's an incentive for the woman to have a better life by leaving with the dude who has a more upward financial mobility and a U.S. passport. And so that's what's going on there. And I think to act like that's not going on is naive, right? That is part of this whole thing. Does even the guy who was promoting Passport Fellas, which is the app, on my show yesterday, he even admitted, he's like, yeah, there probably is some sex trafficking going on with regards to this. And that's one of the dangers that are going on. It's like one of these situations where Colombia is poor. No matter what we do, Colombia is going to be poor. The women there, the situation they're in is that they're going to be in a better situation if they do this than don't do this. So are you trafficking? Yes. But like the thing is, well, someone was going to do it anyway, so it might as well be us. And these guys want to look for a good wife and yada, yada, yada. I have a buddy of mine who lives there and he like only dates super young girls, like 19, 20-year-old girls in Colombia, because he goes, once they get to 21, if they're hot and they don't have a job, they're kind of like forced into this like sex trade, and it's really bad at that point. So he's like, dude, you got to get them young. That's what he told me. I'm not advising anyone do this, but he lives in Medellin. And so from that standpoint, that's essentially what I'm saying is like, for those of you who say I'm not in favor of passport bros, I'm not. I actually think it's kind of a cope. If it gets to an actual point where it's like you just really want a Catholic girl and you're really into Hispanic women and you are legitimately looking for a wife, and in the interim you don't fuck 15 prostitutes, then I could definitely see that like as maybe being the case. Going to another country to find someone better, hey, that makes sense. But like what I will say, the majority of the passport bro thing is it's a cope. You want cheap prostitutes, you go to other countries to find them, then you fuck them, and then occasionally you might bring one home. But when you do, she didn't really have any other options but to leave with you. That's the majority of it. I'm not saying it's 100%, but that is what the majority of is. Again, these guys who are in Colombia talking about, hey, I built a harem in Colombia and let me teach you how. I'm very, very skeptical of that shit, and I would not take that course.
Yeah, I'm in Mexico City, and I find that my dating life, granted, there is a bit of an uptick just because you have the whole foreign thing. I live in a nice neighborhood. There is that financial arbitrage, but Mexico City's getting expensive too. In the area I live, it's cheaper than California, but it's about where California was 10, 15 years ago. It's not like a Colombia. It's not like a Thailand. And I've noticed that a lot of gringos come in and out of here. They don't usually last long, and they come with that mindset, okay, just by virtue of being a foreigner, I'm going to just be rolling in pussy. And that's not usually how it works. I've found that personally, but my dating life here,
they will.
Yeah.
If they go somewhere, these other places, they will. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been to Colombia before, but in Colombia, you always have to watch your back, and you will meet these beautiful girls, or you'll go to a club, say you're vibing her, you're having a good conversation. I speak Spanish, by the way. I went to college down here in Mexico, and you think you're having a legit pull or a legit interaction, and then it's time to go home, and she says something like, "Oh, $100," or "Oh, hey, it's going to cost you," and you're like, "What are you talking about? You thought this was a legit conversation." I've noticed that doesn't happen too much where I live in Mexico, but there are plenty of guys, as you mentioned, that do come down here. They think it's going to be an easy time, and you do have that exception, as you alluded to. When I was in college down here, I went to a private school, so a lot of religious guys came down. They started dating a girl in college, spent their whole time there, and then took the girl back to their home country. And they're still married to this day, but that's a very small exception. I think a lot of guys come abroad.
There are millions of people that brought somebody back from Vietnam or South Korea. That happened. Like I'm not discounting that. These people were in love, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm talking about is the extreme example of the people who go to those fucking bars where there's girls like, fucking for $150 and then claiming to be passport bros to like try to find a good wife. If you're going like there's a difference between passport bros and sex tourism, but a lot of people who are claiming to be passport bros are actually sex tourists.
There's a lot of overlap too. I know I see that you have an armed services background, so I'm sure you've done plenty of traveling to all sorts of countries, good and bad, and everything in between. And there's a class system in a lot of these countries, so you'll get a lot of guys that come in. A lot of the new foreigners, fresh over the border, so to speak. Sometimes it's weird considering myself a foreigner, but you'll see that there are the gringo bars where the gringos go there. They don't have to speak any Spanish, and there are girls there looking for gringos, and they do kind of straddle that line. Maybe it's not explicitly sex tourism, but it's the lower class of girls. So, and you see guys, this happens to them all the time. I went out with some buddies last night where poor guy, not really experienced, doesn't really have a much kind of dating experience in the US. And, I met this really cool girl. And then turns out other foreigners are kind of passing the girl around. So I always make sure in my group of friends, we're kind of more game aware, but one part of our conversation, we'll pull out our phones like, hey, I'm talking to this girl. I see you follow her. Is anyone fucking around with her? Is she a communal girl? What kind of girl is she? And
communal.
We just want to make sure. Yeah. We call them the community chicks. In college, we used to call them the house hoes. Like if you're ever in a frat or anything, the girls that they're always there and they're just kind of with whoever's around at that point. In your estimation, is there a specific profile of a passport bro? Because I've always heard that if you can't do well dating wise in the US, you probably shouldn't go abroad. I would definitely agree with that. I did well in California. I do a little better in Mexico just because the girls are a little more feminine and there's more of that dichotomy between male, female kind of relationships and roles that are played in relationships. But for the most part, I found that it wasn't until my game got good in the US that I could really start doing some damage abroad.
Yes. Listen, is there a point at which you're just not having any success and you might want to try going to another place? I agree with that. But my point is, here's the analogy. Have you ever met the guys in pickup who do day game all the time, just day game in the fucking mall all the time? And then you ask them, hey, do you want to go to a nightclub? And they don't want to go to a nightclub because it's too loud. It's like, if you're doing day game because it's an added part of your life or something you're trying to explore, that's fine. If you're doing day game because you're afraid of going to a nightclub, that's a cope. You're using it as a crutch and you're not getting any better with women. It's the same type of situation here. Like if it's a situation where you've tried everything, you've met a bunch of girls, they're just all disloyal, but you do understand attraction triggers. You do understand how to maintain boundaries. You understand how to break rapport. You understand how to create dread. You understand how pre-selection works. You understand how to be a leader of men. You understand these concepts in order to trigger attraction in women, and you're still dissatisfied, and then you want to go find a wife somewhere else, totally fine with that. But that's not mostly what I see. What I see is guys who are overweight, who could definitely lose the weight, guys that are, poor, who could definitely do things to improve their financial stability. And those are the ones that are going to these other countries for basically, financial arbitrage or dating arbitrage. And that's what's going on.
Now, in general, have you noticed that a very specific type of guy does that? You already mentioned that the guys that don't really quite have it together, the guys that are maybe financially unfit, that are physically unfit. Have you ever seen guys in your experience that maybe they go abroad and start the passport bros thing and then find that they are liking it quite a bit? Because in my experience, a lot of those guys, they kind of wash out pretty quickly. They don't learn the culture. They don't learn the language. They usually don't have a consistent stream of digital friendly income, and they dry up and wash out pretty fast.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen both. I've seen nomads where they'll go from one place to another, but like usually the Colombia thing lasts for a while and then they come back. It's funny. One of the ironies is, I'm Colombian. My family's from Medellin, Colombia, and I don't ever go back there. Like, and I want to. At some point, I'll probably go. I have so many.
It's a pretty city. I like Medellin.
I have so many friends that live in Medellin, Colombia. It's embarrassing how many I have that live there. Right? I'm gonna go there, and like I'm gonna go visit my family's house, and then the rest of the time we're gonna just be at nightclubs and shit. It's just it's so funny how that whole thing works. What I'll tell you is my whole issue is, whatever you're doing, if you're coping in order to do it, then it's a problem. And so if you can create a skill set to where you actually know how to attract women, and then after you create that skill set, you still have, the belief that, hey, this isn't working for me, then you want to go try something else, that'll definitely work. But as far as like, do they last? If you went there just with the intent of just like running through hoes, I'm sure you would get tired of it after a while. I'm sure that would be the case. I'm just what I'm hearing, like I don't think paying for pussy is like better than watching porn. I think both of them are copes. I don't think either of them are like morally, well, there's some moral problems with it. I'm not making fun of guys who do it. I understand, your life may be rough and it's something it's a stage you had to go through. My point is there's what I'm tired of seeing is men who are overweight and could absolutely fix being overweight and become passport bros. Just if you have a choice between becoming a passport bro or losing the weight, when they're choosing to become passport bro, it's just terrible. It's just a terrible, terrible thing to see.
I agree with that. And guys, take it from someone who's lived abroad for years. I was overweight in high school. The minute I got my car and first job, immediately took care of that. Have not had that issue ever since then. And living abroad, I see those types of guys again come down all the damn time. And that they will get chicks. To be honest, you will get laid, but you're going to get the bottom barrel chicks. And then, especially if you don't learn the language of the culture, you're kind of the laughing stock. So I try to not include myself in that category. I have some expat friends we hang out, but they're all more game aware guys, and they're guys of all different races, nationalities, ethnicities, creeds, and what have you. But they've learned Spanish, they've integrated in the culture. We're all legal residents. We make money abroad, working good U.S. jobs with that financial arbitrage, and it's more it feels more like an expat type situation, but. For the passport bros, if you're out there watching and you're thinking, hey, you know what, I'll just go abroad and get free and easy pussy. Well, there's no such thing as free in nature. So you will pay for it. Again, you will get attention. You will get pussy. But there's girls, and I've actually dated girls. I had a main girl a couple months ago, moved to Canada. She's playing the green card game with some guy. And she'll still send me texts and say, oh, hey, look at this song came out. It reminds me of fucking you. I miss you. Oh, I'm coming to Mexico City for Christmas with my boyfriend. Maybe I'll try to sneak out. And you see her post the stories, and this guy knows none the wiser. So you have to be really careful if you are looking at going abroad. Yes, you have to have it together in your home country, but you also have to understand you're going into a new culture. Michael, you mentioned Colombia. I like Colombia. I have a good time there. But again, I speak Spanish. I've been there plenty of times. I don't go to those types of areas. And then most of the Colombians I date, they're usually the higher class girls. My main girl right now is a Colombian girl, and her dad's very high up in the Colombian government. I don't want to give her I don't want to say too much because you'll know who she is, but it's completely different experience than your run-of-the-mill girl at some, gringo club in Medellin. So you guys, you really have to understand and take an honest assessment of yourself. Like, are you the man back home? And if not, you're adding additional layers of complexity in your abroad lifestyle, and you're shooting yourself in the foot before you even get on the damn plane. Michael, you mentioned that for a lot of guys, it's a cope. You should have these things together. What would be a short checklist of things that guys should ask themselves before considering going abroad, for especially the passport bro type topic?
Yeah. Are you overweight? That's like by far and away. Are you coping because you're fat? The simple, the most provably easy, it's not easy, but it definitely is possible thing in order for you to change. I can't make your eyes blue and I can't make you 6'3", but you can absolutely be not fat. If you are fat and you're going overseas to like look for girls, that is nothing but 100% cope. If you got a diet, exercise, whatever, like what I would recommend is look up keto and look up intermittent fasting. If that's what intermittent fasting is one of the greatest ways to lose weight. It's not very difficult. You just basically you push your first meal to like 5 or 6 hours till after you wake up. You only eat twice a day. It's real simple. I would highly recommend that. Get rid of the fructose, the lactose, and the sucrose. Get rid of that shit. I mean, the fructose, the lactose, and the gluten. Get rid of those 3 things. Absolutely. If you're fat, you are disqualified, bro. It's just a cope. Okay. After that, then the next thing is look at the guys who are getting the girls that you actually do want and say, is this fixable for me? If it's something where you just absolutely just think it's not fixable, then that's fine. Like, I would totally understand if you're just like, hey man, I just want an outrageously beautiful woman. I'm kind of an unattractive dude. I'm 5'3". It's like, no matter what I do, I just feel like I'm never going to be able to do that, which isn't true. Like, you could actually overcome that.
Yeah.
With enough status and enough pre-selection, you can overcome that. Let's say it's just not worth it for me. Maybe, but is your money right and are you in shape? That would be the thing I would say before I do that. And this is the most important thing, and this is what we teach in MOA mentoring. Do you present yourself on social media in a way that makes you competent, relevant, and fucking seems like you have access to scarce resources and makes it look like women give you compliance and women find you attractive? If you have those 4 things going and you're still not having any success with women, first of all, I don't think that's possible. You just join my program and I'll help you fix that. But if that's the case, then maybe I could see you doing it. But I feel like it's a cope. I just feel like there's so many better ways to do this than to get up and leave. If the idea is, Michael, I'm not actually interested in a long-term relationship. I just want to fuck as many women as possible that are attractive, and I don't care who else has had sex with them, then yes, you have my blessing. Go to another country and pay for prostitutes. But don't sit there and try to tell me it's because Western women are whores. Don't do that, because now you're just coping.
Well, then you're not doing yourself a favor in that situation either. If you're screwing around at the bottom of the barrel chicks, that's bringing your self-esteem down, and you really know at the end of the day that you're not really all that. And I say this all the time about girls too. You'll have girls, especially again where I live, you'll have girls that jump from foreigner to foreigner. You'll see her Instagram stories. She's going to the fancy restaurants, all the top Instagram spots here in Mexico City, and it's some dude. And you check out the dude, and the guy ain't shit. So she's kind of one of those lower quality type girls too. And you'll get guys that come down here, and especially in my little foreigner circle, because we're all kind of game aware, and every city abroad has like their own private game groups. So you get girls, and then we'll ask like, "Hey, does anyone know who this girl is?" And we're like, "Oh, not that girl." Like, be careful with that girl, because at the end of the day, she knows she's not shit. She knows that really all she has to offer is pussy, and then she'll get these experiences with the foreigners, but she doesn't know how to take it a step further and actually build what most people want, is a relationship.
When you consider like our ancestors, men were trying to spread their seed. So that's why men would have sex with as many women as possible, because the possibility of them getting one pregnant and then not having to raise the child, like, increased the probability of them being able to spread their seed. Well, women in this situation, because they're from an impoverished scenario, them dating multiple expats at the same time to try to see if one of them will get a green card is the same thing. They're basically like, their personal scenario, you don't know the level of suffering and poverty that they're going through. And in order for them to get out of it, they're having to play the game. And that's why they're probably going to date multiple dudes at the same time.
Well, you'll see that even in the U.S. when you go to cities like Miami. You hear guys talk shit about Miami all the time. They're a bunch of thoughts and 304s. But if you're a pretty decent looking guy and you have some game and you speak Spanish, then you have an untapped Colombian, Venezuelan, Brazilian, whatever South American market. And a lot of times they are kind of the upper tier type chicks in their home countries. So they're not necessarily playing that kind of game, but you'll see girls in Miami, the beautiful Venezuelan with a big, dumpy, overweight, 55-year-old American, khaki shorts, but, just sloppy guy. And you'll see that here too. I went to the immigration offices right down the road for me. And I went to renew my residency a couple weeks ago, and beautiful, just drop dead gorgeous Venezuelan women with just really kind of goofy looking Mexican guys. And you can almost see a look of shame on her face. And the guys don't know any better.
Yeah, the problem is there's even a smaller middle class in Venezuela compared to Colombia, and a smaller middle class in Colombia compared to Mexico. Mexico, like, for a Latin American country, I believe they are the wealthiest Latin American country per capita.
They are. And remove the U.S. from the equation, and Mexico's the U.S. Everyone wants to come here.
Yeah. So that's the situation. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. If you're from Venezuela, like, that's on par with like a sub-Saharan African country. That's the level of poverty they have there, right? Like with Haiti. So that's one of the issues that's going on with that. And my whole issue is like, yes, guys, you're going in there and you're pulling out a hot girl, but you're doing so in a place where those women have no other option. So how does that make you feel? Like, that's the only thing I would ask myself. I would like to be attractive for somebody who wants to go out with me. And I would like genuine desire from them. And in order for me to do that, I need to stay in the gym. I need to work on myself. What were the 45 books I read this year? What's my new bench press max? How much money is my bank account? And am I a compelling person to listen to on social media? Have I worked on my speaking voice? Have I worked on my presentation? If I haven't done those things, and then I want to go out and try to get girls overseas, I just don't know if that's the right play. Now, here's the other problem that happens is that when you guys go this route, it is really hard to come back. If you guys have ever met a dude, any of you guys who are coaches who have ever had a client who paid for prostitutes, getting them to talk to regular women and having any patience with regular women is really fucking hard, bro. Because what'll happen is, as soon as they feel any kind of stress, they'll just run back to some hooker that they were paying previously. I actually think that this is kind of the future for Homo sapiens. I think maybe in the next 50 years, you're going to see just imagine if we have kids. I have kids that are, maybe in the next few years. By the time my kids are 16, 17 years old, there's the possibility of them buying like some AI robot that like looks like a woman and is so woman-like, like looks so much like a woman, that like guys start fucking these robots. This is something they talk about in Ray Kurzweil's book, The Evolution, or the Singularity is Near. There's going to be a point to where you're going to have like some artificial looking human that looks like but handles all your sexual needs. And once that happens, those people aren't going to ever want to deal with a real woman because real women are hard to deal with. They require a lot. They're very confusing and they push you in all different directions and they mislead you. And if you don't meet up to their standards, they let you know that, and they're fucking mean sometimes, especially the really pretty ones. And so I think that's the future for us. It's like, so you have to figure out right now, do you want to be a higher tier man that is attractive to women? I'll tell you, it's fun on this side. I would recommend it. All of you should fucking give it a try. Or is it one of these things where you want to give up and take yourself out of the mating market? Chris Williamson did a video the other day, he did a video the other day. 50% of the men are taking themselves out of the dating market. Why is that happening? And, you just see this stuff and it's like, I understand that it's disparaging for some people. I'm not really that fascinated with the idea of being a passport bro. What I am fascinated with is like what happened to us from a socioeconomic standpoint that caused this phenomenon to become so prevalent.
I think that's a fantastic question. And I like the point you brought up about the guys that pay for prostitution. Every now and then, especially because I live abroad and I talk about these topics, so I'll get guys in the comments like, oh, Jaron pays for it. It's like, I've never had to. I played baseball down here 20 years ago and I was jacked as fuck and I lived off campus and had a big ass house and had dope parties. So I was popular. I from day one in Mexico, it was just kind of ingrained in me that I was the shit. And that still translates into my daily life. Granted, I have that when I go back. I go to California all the time, and Mike, you know, a couple of buddies of mine up there, and so I still have that ingrained in me. And I get guys in coaching clients, private groups, or other areas, digital spaces where I hang out, and they'll try to make the case that prostitution is better. They'll say things like, "Well, how much time do you spend wasting on women?" It's like, I've got my Tinder set up right. I've got professional photos. I've got, a 6-pack in all my photos. I have all of the descriptions set up right, everything integrated. I have my opening sequence that works. I get them off the app. I've got it entirely mapped out.
That sounds like a lot of work, man. That sounds like a lot of work.
It's not. You just set it up once and then it just kind of does the work for you. And a lot of times, a lot of these times I'll tell these guys, like, how long do you take? It's just like the porn addiction you mentioned, where you're looking for that perfect video and you need something just a little spicier because you have that addiction. You're down that rabbit hole. So I imagine the prostitute guys are the same way. They're shopping around for the perfect girl and then setting logistics. Whereas for me, like, she just gets in an Uber and usually I can get her over faster than if I ordered a pizza right now, if you have the system set up correctly.
Yeah, I mean, as far as that whole thing, what were you talking about with the logistics with
Oh, in terms of so like the prostitute guys, they'll make the argument, and I've heard this in some of these manosphere type spaces where it's a better value.
Yeah, from a strictly like econ standpoint, yeah, I can I can't argue with your logic, bro. It is definitely a better value. Myron wrote a book called Why Women Deserve Less, which actually went into why chasing women, the incredible time suck that it was. The concept of doing that. And then there's a similar book, or not a similar book, but it's kind of an ancillary book you should read along with that. It's called the Book of Numbers by Aaron Clary.
I love that.
And in that book, he goes over like how much time you put into and what the probability of you hooking up with a girl. Like, he basically, one of the things he does is he correlates women who have 5 tattoos or more with mental disorders. And I kind of have a hard time disagreeing with him, to be honest with you, dude. So the problem is
they're fun, but they're not there for the long haul.
One of the things they talk about in the book is, or one of the things they talk about is this concept, or these other guys are talking about with the prostitution, is like, I'm going to punish these women by pulling myself out of the dating market, and I'm going to have my needs met in a more efficient way, therefore making my life better. But the problem is, you can never really come back from that and ever be good with women, and that's the issue. That's like the main issue with that whole situation. If you guys want to see like an extreme example of this, go look on Fresh Print CEO's YouTube. Walter Weeks, Fresh from Fresh and Fit. He has an interview where he does with CJ Sparks, and it's CJ Sparks versus a passport bro, and it is like the most like brutal interpretation. Like, you have to watch this interview. The guy basically says, yeah, I just pay for sex. Why would I ever care about anything you have to say? I could just get more sex by paying for it. And it's such a brutal interpretation of male-female dynamics that I don't share. But when you see it, that to me is what I think of more as far as a passport bro, is that interaction between CJ, the guy's like, you mean we'd go on a date and you wouldn't guarantee me sex? And CJ's like, no, of course I wouldn't guarantee you sex. Like, you'd have to work for it. I have to find out that we have a connection. And he goes, why would I ever go on a date with you? And it's like, it's really brutal. It's like very hardcore the way it works. And so, yeah, I just, to me, I just feel like it's kind of a cope. But at the same time, I understand going after girls is the book, like it talks about in the book of Numbers, it ends up being a waste of time. Unless you get women out of an unfamiliar environment like Tinder or a nightclub, and you get them into a familiar environment by using Social Circle. And there's plenty of stats that show when you get women out of unfamiliar environments into familiar environments, men who are like, it becomes far more egalitarian. The women that you can go out with become much more attractive, as opposed to in an unfamiliar environment where 80% of men are deemed to be below average attractiveness.
Yeah, I'd love to touch on that social game, because I know there's various aspects of the game. You mentioned the day gamer guys, you have the night game guys. Social game is a newer one for me over the last few years. It's paying a lot of dividends for very little upfront investment. I do really well in the online game. I'm a digital inbound marketer by trade. I've consulted some of the largest corporate conglomerates in the world. So I just applied that same framework to the dating apps, to Instagram, to WhatsApp, to, the house, and then just streamline that whole process. But the social game is a very interesting one. I've been starting to spend a lot more time crafting and cultivating my social circle. And just by virtue of hanging out with cool people, getting invited to cool private events, knowing the photographers, knowing the door guys, knowing the managers, knowing the owners, they'll actually push you out on their Instagram. So anytime I go to an event now, I don't really have to do anything. And within the next week or so, I'll get a handful of inbound DMs from chicks like, hey, I saw you at the event, didn't have a chance to talk to you, you looked busy. And then I can usually close 1 to 2 minimum, usually 2 or 3 every single week following up from that, just by showing up and having a good time with my bros. And then in doing so, I meet more people, and it's kind of an exponential compounding effect. And Mike, I know that's your bread and butter, amongst other things. So I'd love for you to comment more on the social game things. Again, that's kind of a new thing for me, but it's quite fun.
The cheat code when it comes to male female dynamics for men is this thing called mate choice copying, which is when men who get lots of women, and men who women like, more women like. So when you have a girl and she's when you have a guy and he's surrounded by women will they've done several studies on this where they'll show a guy non-contextually in a photo, and then they'll show him with like 1 or 2 women around. And every time the women are like, he's more attractive when he has other women around. Okay. I've seen extreme examples where I've dated women and they're like, I hope when I come home, you're like fucking some other girl. I've had that happen before. And then I've had other examples. No, I've had other examples where it was just a girl and she would get jealous and actually like start a fight with me because she saw other women like staring at me and then want like hot, passionate, nasty sex afterwards. Guys who get women. They get even more women. That's the way it works. So one of the cheat codes is by getting people out of an unfamiliar environment into a familiar environment by either inviting people to someone else's event or creating your own. And in those situations, having tons of female teammates. They could be women you're sleeping with. They don't have to be. If you're Bulgarian, you can show up to a club with 15 girls you fucked. Most guys can't. Most guys are going to have like 1 or 2 girls that they slept with, and then all the other girls are just going to be the girls that they're friends with. That's totally fine. If you show up with 6 girls and you're just friends with all of them, that's fine too. But if you're in a place somewhere in the club or somewhere in a social environment where you're with 6 girls, every other girl is going to notice you, and your attractiveness score is going to go up 1 or 2 or 3 points. So focusing on that, the pre-selection aspect of attraction is one of the core tenets of what we teach in the Men of Action mentoring program. We do that through Social Circle. Again, from an unfamiliar environment to a familiar environment, we see that men are treated in a more egalitarian way in the way women find them attractive. And we know that mate choice copying is a real thing in evolutionary biology. We're using science in order to help men level up as far as their dating life is concerned. And so that's what we teach in Men of Action. And then we have the first 4 steps of Men of Action. They're free. You can go to the free server and you can take the first 4 steps of Men of Action, which is number 1, fix your social media. Number 2, you have to build a list, like a dream list of girls and high status dudes, because my course is not just about dating. It's a networking course. Step 3 is to create as many open threads as you can by offering value to lots of people, usually through inviting them to events. And it doesn't have to be events they can go to or events you can go to. And then step number 4 is to go to different events with 6 girls with you. That means if you're married or if you're single, take 6 girls with you to an event. Doesn't matter if it's the Maxim party or if it's a real estate convention, take 6 girls with you. Watch what happens. Every girl in the event wants to know who you are, and every guy's trying to give you their card so they can hang out with you, and you will get invited to every single event afterwards if you show up to parties with six girls. There's a book called Very Beautiful People by Ashley Mears. She's a professor of she's a professor of sociology at Boston University. And one of the things, so basically for her PhD thesis, she went undercover as a bottle rat for like 2 years. She was just like a party girl that went to clubs for 2 years and wrote about it for a PhD. She's a former runway model. And while she's doing that, she talks about going to the Hamptons in in New York, like north of New York. These beautiful houses, these parties, very exclusive, and all these mansions. And the thing she said is that the thing that got guys into every party in the Hamptons was having women with them. Do you understand the level of networking you can do with some of these like decamillionaires and billionaires, 100 millionaires that go party in the Hamptons in the summer? Imagine if you had access to every single one of those parties. Well, if you had 10 girls with you, you would have access to every single one of those parties, thereby proving my point. And in doing so, when you show up with 10 girls, all the other girls find you attractive. The girls in your group that you're just friend zoning, they find you attractive, and you get access to absolutely anything. That's what I teach in my course.
You made a good point. You said they don't even necessarily have to be girls you're fucking. Because I know there's a lot of red pill dogma out there where it's like, okay, never be friends with a girl or don't entertain a girl who you're not fucking. And I used to follow that to a degree. And then I got to the point where I realized, well, no, I can use women to my benefit. I can get value out of them too, just like they do guys. And it's really an extension of myself and my social circle, to the point now. I went to an event the other day, my main girl, and she invited a bunch of her friends. And I think we had 10 or 11 girls at the table. And I know exactly what you're talking about. We saw that exact effect where it wasn't girls so much. It was every guy in the place coming over. And some of the guys got a little drunk and got a little aggressive, but it's a place that I already knew all the bar staff. I knew the DJs.
They just invite you to everything, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you get invited. Can you? I don't know if you can share my screen. Is it possible for you to share my screen?
Yeah, I think you can. Do you see the present controls on your end?
Look, I've already put it in there.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, let's do that. There we go.
Okay, cool. You see my screen? Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, just in case you guys think that I'm like capping or I'm exaggerating. This is my girlfriend and I. This is my birthday party. It was me and I had 30 girls. There were no dudes there until later. I invited the guys to come later. These girls came. You don't know which one of these girls I'm sleeping with, except her, the one behind me. That's obviously my girlfriend. But like, that's the thing. And when you do this, if you guys were to look at like the likes on this photo, you know what you're going to find? Tons of girls. I think what's ironic though is like two of the biggest porn stars of all time. There's Alexis Fox and fucking Sarah Jesse happened to be at my birthday party. Totally random. It's totally random that they were both there, by the way. It wasn't something that I planned.
It's a magnifying effect that they get those girl circles and it just brings them in.
It was. And so, I mean, you can see like, these are all just guys, this is a weekly occurrence for me. These photos that you can see here, this is what my life is like all the time. And it's not because I have super awesome game or I'm super good looking. It has to do with the fact that women introduce me to other women. That's what happens. Women make other women attracted to me. That's what happens. If you don't understand this concept, this is the concept I teach. If you want to learn this concept, these are the results that you're going to have. It's very simple. That's the way it works. And it's not an accident that me and Ty Lopez work together or Adam Sosnick has me on his show. It's not an accident that Ryan Pineda comes on my show or that Dan Bilzerian comes on my show. These things are not an accident. This is how our life works when you understand the concept of mate choice copying and pre-selection. That's how this works. So that's the question you got to have. And a lot of people have this issue when it comes to that. And so that's what one of the things I wanted to show is that idea right there in action, the way it works. That's what it's supposed to look like.
So how'd you learn all this? Were you always a social maverick? Were you a prom king, high school quarterback, any of that stuff? How'd you come about this?
Super fucking weird dude growing up. No, what happened?
I was too. I was a nerd. I was a fat nerd.
The first place I learned it is I ended up managing a strip club. Just basically on accident. There were no other jobs. I ended up being a DJ at a strip club. And then I ended up managing a different one. And when I was doing that, the girls would have a birthday party. So we'd be like, all right, guys, let's all go to the birthday party, whatever. And I would end up going to clubs with like 10 strippers, right? And it wasn't my intention to do this. I wasn't like a club promoter. I just like, okay, you guys want to ride with me? It's like, oh, Michael doesn't drink. Let's all so they would all pile into my fucking 4Runner. And we would drive to the club. And it'd just like be me and like 6 girls would get out. And another 4 girls would meet me. And then the club owners just started seeing me show up with like 10 girls. And then when I was there, girls even hotter than anyone I'd ever seen would like come up to me and start talking. This is like 25 years ago. And I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how are all these girls just like in my life that wanting to do this? That's where I kind of learned it. And then it got exacerbated a little bit more in 2007 when I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and I would hang out with these club promoters and these guys would do nothing. They would wave their hand, show up at a club and 70, 80 hot girls would show up. and they were always dating the prettiest girls I'd ever seen. Meanwhile, I would hang out with pickup artists and they would say they were dating hot girls. The next pickup artist that I meet that is dating a super hot girl will be the first, unless there's a couple of exceptions. I know a couple pickup artists that have dated super hot girls because I introduced them to them. That's the only way I've ever seen it, because I superseded their cold approach with my own social circle and got them a hot girlfriend. That's the only times I've ever seen that work. So that's kind of where I learned it from. Then moving to Vegas, and then the guys here are just murderers. Like there's VIP hosts here who fuck 2,000 women. They're all over the place, male strippers. You just around those type of dudes, you very quickly see this works, this doesn't work. This works, this doesn't work. And you just separate the wheat from the chaff. And then that's where I kind of was able to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I like that idea. I've noticed again recently, I fancy myself an online game guy for the longest time, but last couple of years I've been getting more into the social game, spending a lot more time, energy, resources, and just focus on developing that part of my life. And currently I'd say, yeah, my top girls in my rotation are all girls I met through social circle. They weren't girls that I cold DM'd on Instagram. They weren't girls I matched on Tinder. Maybe it's a girl that I met on Tinder that I took to an event, and then by virtue of that referral game, 2, 3, whatever it is, degrees of separation, all of a sudden, you know, some beautiful girls start coming into my life. But I think there is that kind of magnifying or that amplifying effect that once you're able to create that inner circle, then you have a more outer rung, then you have a further rung, and then you really expand your reach there. So how did you said you kind of learned this by accident? I found that a lot of times I learned things by accident too in my life, and then you just kind of get it down. So was there a point where you realized, okay, these are things I'm noticing, and then now I'm going to make it a focus and really become the best at this? Or how did you go about discovering this trick or cheat code by accident to parlaying it into your men of action mentoring?
So what we did was we consistently went back and then just kind of saw what worked and what didn't work. And we did it in the biggest experimental ground when it comes to like short-term dating in the world. And that place is called Las Vegas, Nevada. The greatest evolutionary psychology experiment ever contrived is the Strip on Las Vegas, Nevada. It is the most high status dudes competing for the most attractive women. It's nuclear warfare from an intersexual dynamic level here. And so if things work here, if you do something here that gets people's attention, then when you go back to Des Moines, Wichita, or Waco, it's a fucking joke. It's a joke. If you guys can figure out how to get 300 super hot influencers to come to your party, that means when you throw your real estate event, you're going to get everybody there, and it's going to be a fucking joke. Because if you can bench press 400 pounds, then you can bench press 200 pounds. We do things in nightlife and we do things with like really attractive women, not because that's who you want to marry. It's not who you want to marry, and it's not who you want to spend the rest of your life with, and it's not who you want to do business with it. The reason why we do these things is like John F. Kennedy said, we want to fly to the moon and do these other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. That's why we do them. We do these things because they're hard and they make us tougher. So that's why I don't like when guys use day game as a crutch and when they use passport bros as a crutch. That's why I'm not into that. Or use pornography as a crutch. That's why I'm not into that. Don't use it as a crutch. Do these things we explain in the most highly stimulated, most competitive environments, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. That's why you should be doing it.
Are you a Vegas native, or did you move there at some point to figure out,
Dallas.
Like, just like you said? Are you from Dallas? Oh, cool. I was born in Fort Worth. Nice.
I moved to Vegas from McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas.
So this next question will be appropriate for you then. And I get this a lot. What do you do if you live in an area where male to female ratio is not ideal? And I get a lot of coaching clients. I'm in buttfuck nowhere, US. Yeah. What do I do? There's no chicks. Get out of there. Go to a bigger town.
So there is a distribution of women there. They're just not available to you. So what I tell my guys, especially this happens a lot in the Northwest. So places in Washington, Oregon, Seattle, for instance, has a large number of very hideous women. San Francisco, women are shamed for being attractive.
I grew up in Washington State. I know exactly what you're talking about.
In those places, what I have clients that live there, and they don't know. Most of them, what they'll do is move to Scottsdale, where all the pretty girls are. But what a lot of them will do is because there's a distribution of attractive women in every city, no matter where you are. The difference is what you do in those situations is because there is no scene, you create a scene. How do you create a scene? I just told you the first 4 steps of MOA. First, you fix your Instagram, build your list, start getting the open threads with multiple, like thousands of women. And number 4, bringing girls to those events. You start hosting your own photo shoots. Like you find a mansion around there. You start hosting your own photo shoots. You start going after all the bikini baristas in Seattle. There's some hot bikini baristas there. They know a bunch of other girls. Those girls know photographers. Those photographers all know all the other hot girls. And you just do that over and over again until you create a scene in one of those, non-ideal environments.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer. And I like to always bring up the idea. So you get a lot of guys talk about SMB. So I always use the idea of there's your absolute SMB. So let's say that's just global. Your relative SMB, that's relative to your market, and your perceived SMB. So an example, a good friend of mine gave years ago, let's just say, for example, that I'm just like a standard 7 absolute SMB, but maybe because of, height or status or income or area you live or your social network or whatever, maybe you're a relative SMB of like an 8. So I use an example of when I go to my hometown, there's no one quite like me. When I go to Miami or LA, I have a harder time. There's a lot more competition. There's good looking guys all over the damn place. And then you have the status. Okay, maybe I have some status here in Mexico, but you go to these baller ass cities like a Dubai or something. Well, there's the guys with a lot more status. So I always look at the effect of your absolute versus relative versus perceived SMV. If you do things right, like when I played baseball in Guadalajara, I was the shit. So I had the best girls at the university because I was jacked, I was popular, and I was good at the sport I played. And so I think, guys, if you're in a smaller market, then yeah, you could be the big fish in a small sea. But a lot of times I think, I love what Mike says, create the scene if you don't have a scene. But I had a coaching client the other day. He lives in a town of like 2,600 people or something, and everything's way sparsely populated, half an hour just to get to the next fucking house. Okay, well, what does that guy do? And he said, well, the closest town's 2 hours away. I was like, well, you got to start kind of building your life to segue to that, if that's something that's important to you in terms of, having a social environment, having a network, having a scene, and having a robust dating life. Mike, have you found that a lot of your guys come into your types of groups that live in the rural areas, or there are guys that are already kind of have it, they're starting to get it together and they just want to take it to the next step? Or
I have guys in their 60s and guys in their 20s, because what I teach is based in evolutionary psychology and men's desire for higher sexual status and or higher sexual selection and higher status, because it's ubiquitous amongst all men and has been so for thousands of years. If you were to look at the demographics of my clients, it's incredible how many guys I got: African, Asian, guys several clients that live in Israel, clients that live in Ukraine, clients that live in Russia. I have 2 clients right now living in fucking China, and they're using VPNs in order to do. Of course, the vast majority live in the United States and Mexico, and Canada. I have some clients and several clients in Australia.
I know a couple of your guys down here.
Yeah,
when they saw we were on the show, I'm like, oh, you're my bro already.
Yeah. The reason why they do it is because the problems we solve are not for rich guys or white guys or American guys. The problems that we solve are problems that our ancestors had to solve. So they're problems for all guys. And so, no, I don't find that as far as to be a distribution. I find pretty much the main thing that a lot of the guys have in common is that they tried a cold approach pickup course and it failed them miserably, and it usually made them very fucking weird. And those are like some of the main guys that end up joining my course, is because pickup failed them.
I've done that. I've got a buddy that came to town recently, and he's more of the cold approach guy. I was like, all right, well, that's not really something I do, but I'll give it a try. I'd never done a dedicated cold approach session in my life. Yeah. Usually I'm out and about doing stuff and I catch some IOIs. I'm like, hey, I like what I see. I want to see more of it. Give me your number. I'm kind of in a hurry. Look, are you in the neighborhood? All right, cool. And when I did the dedicated cold approach sessions, it didn't really work for me. Girls that I could normally get in my day-to-day life were really off-putting to me. It's almost like I kind of interrupted them, where I just broke into their frame, and like it was intrusive almost. And you get these looks like they saw a ghost on their face. And it got to the point where I'm like, I'll just keep doing what I do, because I don't ever get those responses. I just kind of do my own thing. And then when a girl comes into my orbit, like, oh, hey there. And they will come into your orbit. Like, oh, hey there. Don't think I didn't see you over there. And just kind of take it from that. But I'd like to maybe go more into this in terms of, because you do get guys, they're very dogmatic when it comes to game. Like, it has to be this way, or it has to be this system, or it has to be that structure. Again, personally, I've fallen into those traps, whereas I was traditionally online game, and you can get good girls in online game. Most of the girls that I get are girls that are coming to town, like, hey, I'm from a small town in Mexico, never been to the big city before. Would you like to show me around? All right, cool. Like, those are the top girls. But the social game I've found, just by virtue of hanging out with cool people, and like you said, being where the scene is at, that is where it attracts the high quality women, because they like exciting things. And you by yourself is not going to be exciting as some extravagant event, that you threw, and then that compounding effect of having other exciting people there. And Mike, you did touch on something. We've skirted over it a couple of times. I'd like to bring up a lot of passport bros. I get guys, I get coaching clients too, where they say things like, well, I can't do well because I'm Asian or because I'm Black or because I'm Indian or because I'm whatever. But I was out last night with a group of, like, again, game aware guys down here. We had 2 Asian guys, a couple Mexican guys, a couple Black guys, and then I think I was the only white guy in the group. And we're all doing well. Our game looks very different in terms of, like, from a tactical standpoint, but they're all doing well. And I think at the end of the day, it's really just be a cool guy and know cool people, and just things will start happening for you.
There's that part. I also think, like I said before, what I said about mate choice copying is actually a huge cheat code. Like, I do teach guys how to have really good game. You don't have to have a really good game in order to do what I'm talking about. Like, it actually, you're just so attractive to so many women. Can you, one more time, let's do this real quick. Can you?
Yeah, let's do your screen.
Yeah, let's go. Can you share my screen right there?
Yep. There we are.
You see it? Okay, here we go. Ready? Oh, Michael, I can't do this because I'm Asian. Okay, so we'll pull up the Asian guy. Michael, I can't do this because I'm short. Hold on a second. We'll pull up the short guy. Michael, I can't do this because I'm Indian. Okay, I'll pull up the Indian guy. I can't do this, Michael. This won't work in Europe. I'll pull up the guy from London. Michael, I can't do this because I'm Black. Okay, here we go. Pull up the Black guy. Michael, I can't do this because I'm old. Okay, we'll pull up the 50-year-old guy. Michael, I can't do this because I am. Hold on. What's another example? Give me another one.
Tom Anderson. That's the teacher from Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
Weird. No
Michael,
style.
I can't do this. What? Hold on. Michael, I can't do this because I'm in Mexico. Okay. We'll pull up the Mexican guy. Michael, I can't do this because I'm just thinking of all the examples because I want to give them all to you. Michael, I can't do this because I'm Asian. Okay. No, there's Asian guy right there who's like fucking destroying in New York right now. He's partying with like Leonardo DiCaprio. Michael, I
can vouch for your guy in Mexico too. I run into him at events, and he crushes.
Kareem. Michael, I can't do this because I'm short. It won't work for me. Sorry. Like, destroyed, defeated. That's the checkmate. No, bro, you can't do this when you're short. Michael, I can't do this because I'm Indian. This won't work for me because I'm Indian. Again, incorrect. Not a relevant reason. Very easily fixable if you're Indian. Not an issue whatsoever. Michael, I can't do this. This won't work in Europe. Incorrect. Will work in Europe. It'll work in Romania. It'll work in every other country. This is one in London during the fucking lockdown. No, Michael, this won't work because white girls don't like me because I'm Black. Well, sorry. Unfortunately, no excuse.
Yeah, they don't care.
Not an excuse. Any excuse you guys have, Michael, this won't work because I'm older. Any excuse you guys have, I have the solution for it. This will work. Michael, this won't work for me because I'm Hispanic. No, not accurate. You can do this in any place. You can do this with any ethnicity. There is no exception. That's the way it works. So if you guys have an issue, I will just trounce your issue by showing you evidence that your type of person and your demographic, this will work for you and you will have success. I know this is really problematic for a lot of people because what they have to admit to themselves now is that, wow, social circle was always better than cold approach. Fuck, what did I just waste my last 10 years doing? That's a lot of the pushback that we get from people in the community, is because they were like, man, I've been taught wrong this whole time. I've been taught men and women can't be friends and I need to show intent and man to woman intent and cold approach. And all of a sudden it showed, like, Michael just proved that's not true. He proved it isn't true. He proved it isn't true. So that's what happened.
What's your take on online game? Because I always make the argument that even if you're a cold approach guy, day game, night game, whatever, that in the modern world, it's going to go online at some point. Yeah. It's inevitable.
Social circle game really means Instagram. Mm-hmm. When you say this, so yes, what am I focused on online game? It's like one of these things where if my online game were like a 60 out of 100 and my cold approach game was an 85 out of 100, my online game would still trump my cold approach game because of the scalability. So that's why online game just trumps everything. If you don't believe me, then I will leave your girlfriend over at Dan Bilzerian's house and let's just see if she fucks. Let's just see what happens. You are like, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, guys, but yes, online game will trump because of the scalability. It trumps everything else.
Now, you mentioned that, so guys, like, regardless of the race, the height, the whatever issue, that it's going to work for you. We did start the show saying that if you're overweight, then this is for passport bros, that it wouldn't work with you. Are there any things where if guys are watching this, like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get into the social game right now, that you should take into account first before you do it? Like, for example, if you're grotesquely obese or if you're just kind of weird or, weird, fucked up skin or whatever that might be? Or really, can it work for anyone, even your overweight guys?
Yes. So here's the thing. I have some overweight clients I would like to show you, but I'm not going to because I'm ashamed of the fact that they're overweight. Because any of you can fucking do something about that. All the guys I just showed you, remember those excuses. The excuses were I'm old, I'm a certain color, or I'm short. Those
They
are
all
things
had good
you can't
style
do
and good
about.
photos, though. I've noticed.
Exactly. Those are things you can't deal with. What are the things you can deal with? Your not your intelligence, but your ability to communicate. You can't change your intelligence. It's heritable. But your ability to communicate, your knowledge, you can change that. You can change your ability to like choose a deeper vocal tonality and being a more seductive speaker or actually having smoothness with women. You can change your physique. You can change the way you dress, and you can change your perception that women have of you based on pre-selection and basically the boundaries that you keep. We have a saying in Men of Action: treat them all the same, make them talk about themselves. So that's what we do. And that's what we teach. And that's what works so fantastically well. And it's the reason why the company quadruples in size every year.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'd like to talk a little more about that. So how long have you been in the YouTube game? What got you started? You unlocked this secret and figured, hell, I got to get it out there and share it with people? Or what was the impetus for that process?
So I've been coaching since 2008, so 15 years. And then, I mean, I would say my experiences probably began in like 2000 when I started working at the strip club. Like my education in this whole arena started then. And then I would say 2007, I met Mystery and I became friends with, friends with Mystery in 2008. I just talked to him the other day. And then probably 2010, I became friends with, or 2011, I became friends with Neil Strauss. That was probably where a lot of that got started. But as far as YouTube, I was making content on YouTube in 2013, but it wasn't anything to do with this stuff. What you guys are referring to, I'm at episode 106 on my podcast, and I probably missed maybe 8 weeks. So like 114 weeks is how long I've been doing this. And we've got 700 clients in the program.
Awesome. I really like your model when I was checking out your stuff. I've tried many YouTube things, the shorts and the reels and the long form videos and the presentation style and panel style. And I actually got in the YouTube game because I was on the radio in high school. And I love doing that. Just getting interesting people up here and just chopping up ideas. And I've always been a fan of the long form too. So 100 some odd episodes and you're at the place you are now. That's awesome. So I'll definitely look more into emulating that model from you.
Yeah, definitely. If you, whatever you can do easiest is what you can replicate 106 times. That's the way to go. Definitely.
And so for guys that are watching, and I'm sure most guys are familiar with you, if they're following my stuff, because I've been on other guys' channels before, and that's where most guys find me. But for guys that are just stepping out, I know that this was initially a Passport Bros type topic, what that lifestyle looks like. But even if you do go abroad, again, as I'm learning, you got to learn the social game thing. I'm really good at the online game. I'll do a soft pitch for it here at the end, but I've got an online game course, but a lot of it focuses, there's only one module on actual dating apps. The rest is cultivating the image, getting in shape as a module on that. Another one is getting the girl off the app and then in real life as fast as possible. The Instagram game is absolutely huge. How alphas use Instagram. And then actually once you get in her face to face, you have to convert that. You have to eventually get to the intimacy aspect of it and then, do it well to keep her around. So we have that down there, guys. Like click on that site to check it out. I don't want to deviate from this topic too much, but even if you are a Passport Bro, I have found personally, I can attest to it, that once you start investing in your social game and understand the online aspect of game, whether that's dating apps and or Instagram, at some point you do have to get your Instagram solid. Definitely look into that. But Mike, for the guys that, came here for this stream based on, okay, maybe considering Passport Bros, or Mike doesn't like Passport Bros, what would you tell them are the next steps that they should take to start getting this area of their life taken care of?
I like all of you, which is why I'm going to tell you this. None of you are a fucking special snowflake. If you want better in life, you have to do better. You're a man. As a man, you have a burden of performance. If someone told you otherwise, like your mom or your fucking therapist, stop listening to them. You have to bust your ass because no one is coming to save you. If what I'm saying sounds uncomfortable, but you know it to be true and you want to get closer to this, then join the fucking program now. Take action. It's not called the Men of Opinions. It's not called the Men of Dithering or Men of Blathering, the Men of Trauma Release, the Men of Astrology. It's not called the men of TikTok commenting. It's not called the men of anonymity or the men of fucking feelings. It's called the men of action course. Every 15 minutes in the course, we give you actionable advice to improve your life and to improve your performance in the world. And it is based in evidence. If you're interested in checking out something like that, go to moamentoring.com. If you're not sure, just go find me on Instagram. I'll put you in the free school server. You'll get access to that group of 30 Instagrams that I showed you so we can get rid of some of your excuses. And there's also tons of video testimonials. The first 4 steps in my course are free. They're on there as well. Plus, you get the schedule for everything we did yesterday. Obviously, we did a call with Dan Bilzerian. He comes on our calls sometimes. Dan is a good buddy of mine. So we talk about all that stuff. Again, if I think that something is true, I run it by Dan. Because whatever I think, Dan has run it to the nth degree. Does that make sense? Money game, Dan's run money game more than, like, as far as you can take it. Pre-selection, Dan's, dated 45 girls at the same time. He's taken that farther than, and he's fucked 6 girls at the same time in a fucking hot tub and then was like live streaming it while he was at a party. Anything you can think of, he's done it. So I run it by him. I'm like, does this sound too extreme? And so in doing so, I've been able to curate an incredible program that's able to teach you extremely practical stuff and incredibly, incredibly valuable for fixing your life.
That brings up a question, because I hear, and I get this sometimes too. Like, it seems like you're a little more seasoned in this space. I'm relatively new to this space. And for me, it was more like I just started getting areas of my life together and guys notice, for example, like the fat guys out there. I'm really good at helping with significant weight loss, 100 pounds or more in the course of a year, a couple of years, whatever that takes, because I did that myself. I had to do it once and I've never had to worry about that again. So guys, if you're fat, start there. But I get guys, and I'm sure you get it too, where guys like, well, Mike doesn't fuck all these chicks, or like Jaron can't get laid, or, oh, he has to pay for it. I've seen videos out there where guys like, well, Dan can't get laid. I'm like, dude, the guy's a fucking billionaire professional poker player and funds his own movies. Like, if he's not getting laid,
forget all that.
Yeah, so who are these guys?
So many competing to be like around him, and the girls see other girls competing and they just throw themselves at him. So I tried to replicate that in my life, and it absolutely works. Oh, one other thing. This goes to any of your clients. If you don't take me up on this, you're a bitch. I will put up $20,000 to anyone who can find one single girl I have ever paid to be in one single video or come to any of my events. $20,000. And you're like, oh, Michael, that's bullshit. No. They're all tagged. All of them. You can find every single girl that's come to every one of my events. You can find them. You can message them. You can find one single girl. I'll give you $20,000. Paid for it. Fuck you. If you think that, don't be a bitch. Stand behind your words and prove it. Find one. You should be able to find one. Dude, there's thousands of girls in my content, but you're not going to find any. And the reason why you're not even going to try is because you know that once you figure out I didn't pay any of them, you've got a lot of answering. You've got a lot of introspection to do. You've got a lot of questions. Bro, what was I thinking all these years? He's able to pull this off and he doesn't have to pay any of them. Fuck. That means we've been taught wrong this whole time. Shit. We should have been worried about logistics, social circle. We should have been worried about fucking social media. We should have been worried about having women introducing us to other women. We should have been doing this for years. Instead, we're out here acting like fucking creeps. That's what'll happen. That's why none of you will take me up on that offer.
Well, the tag is worth more than the money. If you're putting together bomb ass events that everyone wants to be a part of, everyone wants to be a part of that. Me as a millennial, we call it FOMO, fear of missing out, and that's just basic human psychology and sociology. I've understood that, and again, I'm not at the social level of game quite yet. I'm still fairly new to it, but I'm seeing it before my very eyes. And then parts of my life before, when I played baseball in college, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any game. Just girls would just show up to the games and hold little signs and fucking be waiting for me when we were done with our double headers. And that's really all I had to do. Yeah.
I mean, that is Dan tells a story of like, he wanted to see if he could fuck this girl without talking to her. So he went on a yacht and he just handed her his phone and they didn't talk for a second. He just like nodded and she followed him to a bedroom and he fucked her and he didn't say a single word to her. Like, yeah. I've done it several times where I've had clients out with me and I'm like, I'm going to get that girl's number and I'm not even going to say a word. And I go up to her, I'll start thumb wrestling with her or whatever. And then I'll give her my phone and I'll start dancing or whatever. And she'll put her number in my phone and then I'll fucking dip. I've done that before. Like, yes, if you have all the rest of this done, you don't need any game and it'll work. Yes, for sure.
That's actually a good game. I want to start doing that. I've got buddies here that are newer. So they do like the translation apps and same thing. You'll get guys guys that are watching on the other end of the screen that'll say, oh, I can't do it because I'm short, because I'm Asian, I'm Indian, or I'm whatever. But I've got Indian buddies, I got black buddies, I got Mexican buddies, and they, even if they don't speak Spanish, it definitely helps if you do, but they'll do the translator app and have no problems at all. I mean, really, if like what Mike's saying, once you have
I love the translator app.
together,
the translator app's awesome, dude. When there's a girl in the States and she speaks a language nobody else speaks, and you have that translator app, bro, you are good to go, bro. That is a huge comfort building technique. Translator app is huge for comfort building.
I think that's what it is. I've got a buddy sitting with me now, and I've noticed, I was like, dude, you do better with the translator app than I do actually speaking the language. Because sometimes I have a little too much energy and I come a little too hard and a little too direct. Like, they see me and don't think I speak Spanish, and then I open them like, oh shit. And then, I think I almost over game sometimes with the translator app. I tell my buddy, it's almost disarming, I believe. And like you said, it's comfort building.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to cruise through here, see if we have any comments real quick. I haven't really been checking them. Yeah, I've just got a highly populated area, been in PA for a year. Right, it doesn't look like we have too many more comments, so we can kind of start taking it home here. Mike, anything else on again, we deviated from the Passport Bros topic. That's fine. I'll just change the description here a bit. My conversations typically do that,
no,
but
fine.
I saw you getting fired up, and definitely I wanted to let you go. I did want to comment. You've mentioned a couple of times on presentation and communication skills. And this is something I try to tell my guys a lot too. Were you always a natural at this, or how did you go about developing that skill set?
It's definitely repetition. You're going to find that with a lot of things that I do is like, it's a function of repetition. If you just keep doing things over and over again really well, you're going to get better at it. This is something I learned from flying in an airplane. There's just several other things that I did where I learned these techniques. And so there really is, I love Alex Hormozy says this, there is only work harder. There's only work harder. There's nothing else. You have to work harder. You have to try more. If you don't do that, you're always going to be behind the curve. So like, that's what I would recommend, is that if people really want to get good at this, like as far as public speaking, then I would probably start hosting Zoom calls with your friends, or just any of my clients who even have an inkling of starting a podcast, I tell them to do it immediately. And I always tell them I'll go on their podcast. I'll be your first guest if you want. And the reason why is, even if the podcast never catches on, it gives you an unbelievable ability to network. And it gives other people who are interested in you like a way to like learn more about you and almost to become obsessed with your brand. It's a great way for brand building. So I recommend, and it also helps you as far as your public speaking is concerned. And you also, because you watch yourself on camera, you start to notice if you have the weird facial tics and the weird head movement, you start to see it.
The likes. You
start to see, the likes of the ums, the verbal crutches. You start to see those things, and you become a better communicator. So that's what I would recommend. I hosted a bunch of award ceremonies when I was in the military. I was the MC at a nightclub, like that, stuff like that over years. I would say the number one thing that helped me with my public speaking though was 4 years of being a DJ at a strip club and being like, cinnamon, stage one, cinnamon, like doing that for 4 years. You just get so good at being on the microphone. It becomes easy.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And I do want to thank you too for stopping by, because one of your guys is a buddy of mine, and he mentioned, he's like, hey, get Mike on the podcast. Mike is doing a strategy, and now I understand why. He's like, he'll go on anyone's podcast. And I've always been hesitant in asking bigger names on my podcast, but I've had guys reach out to me through my social circle, like, why don't you get so-and-so on there? Why even ask that guy? I'm like, oh, sometimes humility is a crutch too, which I'm working on, to where, well, I only have like 3.4K subs, so why would Mike want to come on my podcast? But this buddy of mine said, no, that's a strategy. He goes on every podcast. So now I'm thinking, light bulb, I need to start doing that too, getting in front of new audiences, honing in this speaking skills, dialing in the message. So I definitely appreciate you giving me the time to come on here. And then guys, if you have any last questions here in the chat, pop them up there now. If not, we can start wrapping it on up. So Mike, where are you? Where can guys find you? You already mentioned what the steps they are they need to take, but what's your takeaway for these folks?
The main thing I'm going to tell you guys is, man, hit me up on Instagram and say you saw me on the show, and I'll put you in the free school server, or you can go to school.com with a K, SKOOL.com/men of action free. There's a hyphen in between each word, men of action free. You guys can join our free school server. There's a ton of information on there. We keep everything updated. We have free calls every other week, and we also have the schedule for Access Vegas, which is a show that I host with Rollo Tomasi. Also, the podcast schedule is on there as well, and that is I just had Homath on today. One of my favorite interviews of all time. Homath Where are the guys with no hose? You guys remember that video? He's the one, he got viral from doing that. That dude, it's I'm super excited. I want to go back and watch it again. It's really blowing up right now. So a lot of great interviews coming on. You guys want to watch me with Justin Waller, watch me with Sterling Cooper, watch me with Rollo Tomasi. If you guys want to watch me with Adam Sosnick, you want to watch me with Wes Watson, with Ryan Stewman, with Ryan Pineda, with Dan Fleischman, with Brad Lee, with any of those guys. If you guys want to check out some of those really, really great marketers, that really, really high status dudes, you can do that. But you can also see me with Chloe Teray. You can see me with CJ Sparks, see me with Nora Ford, with Nicolette Shea. You can see me with Corey Yee, Brandy Andrews, and all these big models. They go on my show too. So if you guys want to check that out, go to the Michael Sartain podcast and prepare to be offended. Do not watch it at work. You will get fired. It is not safe for work because we discuss evolutionary psychology and progressives do not like that shit.
Yeah, it seems like that doesn't hold your channel back too much. I know looking through mine in the early days, I came out the gate real fast, and then I'd look at the metrics and see certain topics YouTube was not too fond of. But I've noticed that you're pretty liberal with the language, and I've found that okay, well that's usually how I
bleep
talk
out
too.
everything.
So
no, I bleep out
do?
everything
Okay.
on my reels. I bleep out everything, not on the podcast.
Oh, I see. Okay, so YouTube doesn't.
Yeah, you also, if you do a 3-hour live stream, they're way more lenient on what you can get away with than if you actually post 90-second clips full of profanity. Yeah, it's a little different.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I'm still kind of dialing in my strategy. And you know what? While we're still live, a question kind of personal from me to you. In terms of getting these bigger guests on your show as you started taking off, it seems like you already had some of these folks in your network. But how'd you start building that Rolodex of bigger name guests and more publicly prominent people?
Yeah. So I discuss other people on my podcast, and then I clip it, I post it on Reels, and then I tag them in it. So the thing that started it all for me is Bilzerian was coming out with a book in October of 2020, in October of 2021. No, 2022. I can't remember when he was coming out with the book. Well, anyway, when he came out with his book, no, it was 2 years ago. And when he came out with it, I told CJ Sparks, like, dude, Dan Bilzerian's coming out with a book. I cannot wait to read this book. I was like, yeah, man, I was at a bunch of these parties. This is going to be awesome. I took that clip and I tagged Dan in it. He wrote back, my man. He sent me an early copy of the book. I finished the book before anyone else. And then I got Dan Bilzerian on my podcast. I mean, he and I have been friends for 10 years, but like we actually became a lot closer after that. And so that's how I started it. Same thing. Dr. David Buss, you know, I would mention him on my show. I would tag him in the clip, and then he would be like, oh, this guy's talking about me on his show. And when you see that, far more likely to get those people to come on your podcast. The other thing I would tell you to do is surround them, meaning like I am going after I want Alex Hormozy to come on my show. So every single person Alex Hormozy has had on his show, I am getting them on my show and having them all message him at the same time and being like, bro, you have to go on Michael Sartain's show. That's what I'm doing right now, and to the point where it's just like, he's just annoyed and he just gives up due to attrition and finally comes on my show.
Yeah, because you came up quick. I've been watching this type of content for years. Sometimes I stray away. I get into other areas of my life, you know, other things that have nothing to do with the social game or whatever. And, you know, other people have, I'm sure most guys have outside passion projects and hobbies and whatnot. But every now and then I'll check back in. I'm like, who's this Michael Sartain guy? And then I started hearing your name everywhere. And then a lot of my friends have known you or have gone to your events or a part of your group. I'm like, all right. And then I think that's how I got the invite. A mutual friend of ours like, hey, have Sartain on your podcast. I'm like, oh, and again, I was like, oh shit, you know, he'd come on. He's a big name. And then, yep, here you are. So again, I definitely appreciate you coming on, guys. Be sure to check out Mike. He's got the link down there at moamentoring.com. Also on Instagram, follow him. That is a very good example of how to set up your Instagram. I'd say mine, I could probably use better professional photography, but guys, for my stuff, if you want the online thing, again, I'm really good at the online dating apps things in terms of setting up the apps for the prospecting side, getting matches, swiping strategies, getting them through the funnel. That's your openers to text and or Instagram. Those both mean different things, and you'll learn why in this course. And to actually setting the date, and from more of a tactical and strategic standpoint, setting the date, closing the date, and then actually maintaining them. And then the first module, there's a core cluster. We actually start off with what you want, because a lot of guys come to me like, hey, you know, my dating life's not great. I'd like it to be more like yours. I'm like, well, what do you want that to look like? Do you want to have a main girl plus a couple rotation chicks plus one night stands rolling through? Do you want just a long-term type thing with someone, or what does that look like to you? And then a lot of that is just undoing mental mapping that's been holding you back too. So first core cluster, we start that. We get into your physical fitness, physique, diet, routine, hygiene, all that stuff. Cultivate a style. It doesn't have to be expensive. Like, you know, Mike, I noticed you did the black shirts too. I like the V-necks. I go to H&M, just get a bunch of these things. If you have a nice body underneath, let's say it looks good.
Yeah,
no I don't change
my shirt. I just get bigger arms.
Yeah, exactly that. In fact, yeah, girls, like I have girls pick out my clothes for me when I go out. I'm like, well, what do you want to wear? I was
Guys,
like,
look,
I'd rather just be naked, but you can't do that.
look at this. Look at this video, guys. This study. Women have more orgasms with men with broader shoulders. Women prefer a 1.65 to 1 shoulder to waist ratio. And
The golden
you know
ratio.
How you get
Yep.
that? You know how you get that? You fucking lose the weight around your waist. That's how you do it. And you wear shirts that show the V-neck taper. That's a fucking cheat code right there.
Awesome. Yeah, my course, we have a module on that, calculating the aggression or the golden ratio and exactly how to achieve that. And Mike, you nailed it. A lot of times, guys, your genetic blueprint is designed perfectly. So if you just give your body the right things and throw the right stimuli at it, it's going to do some beautiful things for you. So yeah, that the golden ratio is key for that. We get into that one of the modules. The second cluster is all about just the dating app strategy, how all the apps work, the technical and functional breakdown of all of them, what works best for you, what might not work best. Again, how to get matches, how to get them off the app, on dates. And the last cluster is once you get the girl face to face, how do you execute a date? Do you do a date? Do you do a walk in the park, coffee date, straight to the house? I run the straight to the house model. And once she's physically in your face, how do you convert that? How do you actually close it? And then unless you want to just rack up a ridiculous notch count, how do you keep her around? And then how do you actually start building a relationship, which most guys who reach out to me say is what they want. So if you need more information on that, guys, go ahead and hit me up at IG Gringo Guides. I'll be putting some reels and ads and whatever up over the next few days. We have open enrollment for the next week. So make sure you get in there, and we'll be starting here very quickly, coming right out of the holiday season to get you ready for springtime and actually living the dating life that you'd like. And then again, for the social side of things, and Mike, I'm sure you have plenty of online tips too. Your Instagram's fantastic. Be sure to hit up Mike. And guys, I want to thank you all for stopping by. Mike, you have any last words? Or are we ready to roll this on out?
No, that's it, man. I got to get out. I'm actually starting my MOA call right now. I just got out of the studio with Ryan Pineda. I'm doing this with you. And then I got to coach I got 200 guys coming on the call right now to coach, and we're going to get them right.
All right, perfect. So guys, yeah, be sure to check out my course down below. Check out Mike. He's going on a call right now. It's the time to join. And Mike, I want to thank you again for stopping on by. I'm sure we'll have opportunity to collaborate in the future, and we might bump into each other one of these days. I'm up in your neck of the woods every now and then, and it looks like we have mutual friends. So I'm learning
awesome,
from
man.
you just from your free content. So can't wait to take it to the next level.
Awesome, man. I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, take care. It's a pleasure.
Take care.